Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters Encounters video. I thought I would mix this one in here while I'm continuing to do your mysteries and oddity suggestions, mainly because this one came from originally a reddit.com website, but it took me to another website called phantomsandmonsters.com, and there it features something involving, at least according to the user, little hopping men that were apparently near her house and what she considered to be some very bizarre looking creatures. Also, this user was an artist, so she was able to draw the creatures themselves, and I'll include them here in just a moment. But there's a notion too that it could be another identification of the crawlers. I'd love to hear though what your thoughts are on this. What type of creature could this be? There's not much detail, at least when it comes to her explanation, but the drawings themselves, they definitely do lead to another thing. In fact, you're looking at a representation of them now. So let's go ahead and let's share this encounter here, which was known as the Little Hopping Men in the Trees of Homer, Alaska. So here's essentially what happened. If you want to know where Homer, Alaska is, I have no idea where it was either. It's pretty much on the in tip associated with Alaska, so it's way up there. In fact, you're looking at some of those pictures of that location there, about as remote as you can be. I imagine it's so cold up there during most of the year, like when it comes to just being blanketed in snow, with just a couple of months of it being at least otherwise livable, like being able to have a clearer ground and walk around and so on. So it's weird that in this very, very remote location that's very cold, you would have these quote-unquote unusual beings that were haunting this woman. Her name was Lisa Merrill. You're looking at a picture of her here now. She lived in Homer, Alaska between 2013 and 2018, and it was during that time that she said she started seeing these creatures. In fact, her home, which she described, was being on a isolated area on a small street, but it was surrounded actually by very, very tall trees. More on that here in just a moment too. She was there with her boyfriend when she said she started to see these creatures by those tall trees. At first she thought she was going a little crazy because it was the notion that she was seeing them, but apparently others were not. She saw one, and then she saw several more, and then eventually, according to her, it got to the point where she saw hundreds of them there in those trees. But what was most interesting about that is they, according to her, were jumping back and forth between the trees. Actually, a better term that she described was they were dancing between the trees. She described them as being strange little men who, when they did this dancing, had nothing when it comes to gravity bothering them. So the picture in my mind was you could see them probably jump from one limb to another, and you know how normally it's just straight down, right, when it comes to gravity? Well, in this case, they weren't falling, they were just gradually, easily jumping from one location to another. And the further picture I got was, it was more on the lines of like a fluid motion, like almost like if there was no let's say nothing pulling them down, they were just floating like on a balloon from point A to point B. That's at least the impression that I got. And then in other cases, they were hopping around as well amongst those trees. But when she started to see hundreds of them, and again thinking that she was going out of her mind, she finally got her boyfriend to be able to take a further look, and had asked him to bring some binoculars as well. And they saw it. They saw these things. She saw it. He saw it. So now she had a corroborating witness to be able to see them. And they were apparently only there at night. There's no further description, at least when it comes to like details on how they looked like. But as I mentioned earlier, she was an artist, so she was able to draw these creatures and then showcase to them showcase to anyone what they look like based on her interpretation. And so that's what you're looking at here. That's where immediately it looks like it's more on the lines of a crawler, right? It looks like something associated with those type of creatures, a hairless creature with long gangly arms, long gangly legs as well. I mentioned as well on those past videos about those black eyes, if you could even call it those. That's what it looks like here. So who knows if this was truly the case as well with these dancing creatures, but otherwise that's at least the initial interpretation. The next mysterious thing was this. Those trees, eventually, I guess those creatures left, eventually those trees started to wither away and die. In fact, you're looking at some of the before and after pictures as well. You'll see that they are more along the lines of healthy trees, and then on the next picture it shows that they're gone. They're absolutely just 100% no more leaves, nothing. It's almost as if they just wilted up and then are past their point of being alive. They're just basically dead. And so she was able to showcase that those were the actual trees where these creatures were. I love that stuff too. You know how much I love actual 100% specific spots. Like if somebody tells me that there's a creature that's there, like the Hospital Goblin and so on, and it happened to be at one tree out of all those trees, like right at that specific tree, that's the stuff that I look for. That's the stuff that I love. So seeing stuff like this is really great because that's where those creatures were. They were right there on those spots, not anywhere else within that entire area, but right there on those spots. But they left, and whatever happened to those creatures afterward, who knows? But apparently at least they were there during that time period with her when she lived in Homer, Alaska. Eventually she actually ended up leaving and moving to another location, and it didn't sound like these dancing little men actually moved anywhere else with her as well. So they just flat out disappeared and were never seen afterward. Her story was chronicled on the Discovery Channel. There was a show, I don't know if it's still on right now, but it's called Aliens in Alaska, and then that's where she was able to showcase this too, and part of her story and so on. But if anybody has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. What about those of you? It's a long shot, but those of you, if you have anybody that knows, maybe you did, or others that live there near Homer, Alaska, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are too. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.